Gade, de pou apre l'avocat, nou vle se nou rele.
Eh, n'a dit tout le monde bonsoir. Nous là encore pour l'autre jour, semaine passée, nous bat en vini. Wabou nous t'es vraiment occupé semaine passée, nous pas de temps pour nous venir, mais aujourd'hui nous là ensemble avec mon yo. N'a dit mon West Palm Beach bonsoir mon Port Saint Lucie, Fort Pierce, Fort Lauderdale, Miami parce que nous connaissons plein de choix de tous côtés radio à tous côtés et yo ka regarder nos live tout sur YouTube et sur Facebook tout. So, n'a salué tout le monde. Et comment est?
Bon, I'm doing well, thank you. Come away.
Yeah.
Bonsoir.
Yeah, parce que c'est à forcer mon parler anglais. Faut me parler créole tout, mais il va seulement pour forcer parler anglais, men. D'ailleurs, anglais, même ça créole, moi, m'en a fait, men. So, faut me débrouiller le parler. Parce que j'ai 8 ans, monsieur là, c'est supposé parler créole. Bon, moi, bien que je comprenne tout ça, nous dit, but faut me parler tout. So, n'a dit mon yo si on a une question yo ka toujours les nous là poser nos questions à propos des accidents machine, slip and fall, workers compensation, nous on y a très bien nous gain immigration tout. Si on a une question soit faire immigration yo ka relé nous pendant nous dans show là ou bien yo ka relé numéro office là 866 945 47 68 m'a prévoir numéro pour nous c'est 866 945 47 68 semaine passée à nos pattes là jeudi à nous venir à toute vitesse nos pas camper what you have for us today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm Rob Trilling. I'm one of the attorneys at Your Injury Law Group. And oftentimes we talk about automobile accidents and slip and falls and other types of accidents. And as you said, we also handle workers' compensation. We also handle all types of insurance claims and also all types of immigration claims. So if you have a question, give us a call. If you have a claim you'd like us to take a look at, 866 945 47 68.
So, n'a dit tout le monde, yo, non là ensemble avec eux, nous avons une belle émission aujourd'hui. Si vous avez une question, vous pouvez toujours les nous. Si vous n'avez pas de question, nous là, vous pouvez toujours les nous dans l'office en tout. 866 945 47 68. So, Bob has been winning a lot. So, what advice you have for the people that driving on the street?
You know, that's a good question. You know, this has been a very interesting time weather-wise. We've had a tremendous amount of rain. I know in Broward County, for example, they had 26 inches in 24 hours, almost unprecedented.
Yeah.
You know, and
this is the first time I heard that.
Yeah, and we're seeing, you know, it's really, that was last week. I think it was Wednesday.
Yeah.
And in fact, they closed schools for 2 days in Broward County.
Yeah.
And, you know, I drive through Broward County, and I know that was the situation. And it was treacherous, and it's always treacherous when it's raining. You know, part of the problem, Claude, as you know, is that the drivers, you know, we don't necessarily drive, people don't drive real well in the rain.
Yeah.
And people drive too fast for the conditions. There's a lot of slipping and sliding on the wet roads. And when people drive fast and they need to come to a sudden stop or slow down or even change lanes or whatever, there's a lot of collisions that occur because of loss of control.
Yeah.
And by simply going too fast for the conditions is very common. It's one of the most common types of accidents that we see, you know, in the rain conditions here in South Florida. So, you know.
So basically what people can do, they have to drive, don't slow down? Or?
You know, you have to be very careful, and you have to prepare yourself. And one of the ways that you can prepare yourself, and we talked about this last week in leading up to this show, we were talking about that we're going to speak about insurance, insurance coverages. And one of the ways that you can prepare yourself is by making sure that you've got the right kind of coverage that you need for your vehicle in these times.
Okay. Yeah, ça vraiment important for na situation ça for mon yo make sure you get bon coverage na genre de cas ça parce que c'est ça pour le sauver si jamais on va être arrivé machine ou bien on même on a fait un accident dans l'arrière.
You know, there's all kinds of different insurance coverages, and we're going to talk a little bit about them tonight. And I don't want to bore everybody with the details, but this is really important stuff. Because if you know, the time to look at your insurance is before you have an accident, not after.
Yeah. So most of the people they don't take a look at the coverages, and they don't even know what type of coverage they have.
Exactly. People, when you ask them, people say, "Well, I have full coverage." Well, what does that mean?
They always say that.
And what does that mean? So you know, they don't. This is really important to know what kind of coverage you need, what kind of coverage we recommend, what kind of coverages are available?
Yes, ça vraiment important. Mon yo, des fois, l'on demande mon yo qui coverage yo gen, yo dit full coverage, mais full coverage, là, faut qu'on ait exactement qui qualité coverage yo gen. Même les ou gen full coverage, faut mon nan détail ba ou pour do exactement qui qualité coverage yo gen.
So we're going to go through them we're going to go through them pretty briefly, but basically the types of coverages that are available and what we recommend.
And people can always call the office if they
Absolutely.
have any question. And
we're happy to...
toujours, si nous pas gen tan couvrir tout ça nous bon couvrir ou bien nous gon question, on yo ka toujours les office là dans 866 945 4768 poser nous n'importe question nous prêt pour nous aider.
Now, it's important people understand you're getting a lawyer's perspective. I'm a lawyer who practices in the area of personal injury and insurance litigation. So you're getting my perspective. I'm not an insurance salesman. I'm not out there to sell insurance policies or anything like that. But I think it's important that people understand what coverages are the best practices, so to speak. What's best for you to have before you get in an accident.
Yeah, ça vraiment important qui qualité coverage pour gagner avant ou ta involve non accident. N'a dit mon yo, c'est pas ça n'a souhaité pour yo, mais on a la yo pas j'aime connaît si jamais ça t'est arrivé, n'a préparé mon yo pour ça, but c'est pas ça non souhaité pour personne parce que accident c'est pour un bagage on monte à souhaiter pour l'autre monde qui t'est arrivé l'autre monde, mais si jamais ça t'est arrivé tout, ou préparer ou gagne un monde qui là qui pour représenter. Si ça fait nous dit mon yo numéro téléphone ça toujours Kembel ou bien doit pas gain problème jodi a de Messi TV ou gain problème non ou bien on gon ami en famille qui gain problème Kembel numéro 866 là 945 47 68.
Let's start with the basic. The very basic insurance that people are required to carry is something called PIP PD.
Yeah.
Which is personal injury protection.
Yeah.
And property damage coverage.
Yeah, c'est c'est ça majorité moun yo gain. C'est ça yo recommandé tout pour moun ta gain son machine c'est property damage.
And it's actually property damage liability coverage, and I'll explain what that means.
Property damage liability coverage. Can you explain that, please?
Absolutely. Liability coverage protects the other person if you're involved in an accident or collision and it's your fault. Yeah. That's what liability protection is.
Liability a protéger moun sous un accident, c'est fort ou li protéger l'autre moun.
So if you're in a collision and you cause the accident or your negligence causes damage to someone's property, that's what that PD policy is for.
OK, ça c'est sous non collision et collision fait dommage pour machine l'autre monde nan. C'est peut-être ça li là lui-même.
It is not there to protect your own car.
Ça li ba la pour protéger machine pour là.
That's only there to protect the other person's property damage should you cause a collision or you cause damage.
OK, ça veut dire sous frapper machine au monde li là pour protéger machine monde.
Now PIP on the other hand is something that is there to protect you.
C'est PIP c'est li qui là pour protéger là.
And what PIP does is it pays 80% of your medical bills or up to 60% of your lost wages, up to $10,000.
OK, li paye 80% medical bill là et jusqu'à $10,000.
Okay. And those percentages, 80% of medicals and your 60% of lost wages, there's some caveats to it, some limitations to it.
80%
medical. And 60% wages.
Wages, okay.
Okay, so there's some caveats to it. The statutes, the laws allow for the medical bills to be reduced for those bills that are subject to the payment.
Okay, so gonti bagay la loi réclamer pour bill pour qui réduire bill yo na kasa yo.
To something called fee schedules, which are very complicated. We can go into a whole other time. I'm not going to get into that today.
Yeah, those very complicated.
Yeah, but it's a formula. It's a series of formulas. But bottom line is, it doesn't pay all of your medical bills. It pays up to 80%.
Okay,
80% of your medical bills
doesn't cover all the medical bills. They only pay for 80%.
Exactly, after your deductible. So, for example, if you have $1,000 deductible, the first $1,000 in bills are your responsibility.
Some people have an issue with the deductible. They don't know exactly what is the deductible. Can you cover that?
Absolutely. Deductible is a really important insurance concept. And what it says is that's that part of your insurance that you are personally responsible for before the insurance company pays $1.
Okay. So deductible, c'est ça vous supposez payer avant assurance là commence à payer $1.
So for example, if you have $1,000 PIP deductible, the first $1,000 of medical bills are your responsibility.
You're responsible. Ça veut dire si vous gagnez $1,000 deductible, premier $1,000 c'est vous qui payez.
And in that situation, your insurance company pays nothing towards those bills, those first $1,000 in bills.
So if you don't pay them.
No, regardless of who pays them. They don't pay anything towards that first $1,000 in bills.
Yeah.
They only are required to pay 80% of all bills after $1,000.
Okay. So basically, what There's $500 deductible. Yeah, there's $1,000 deductible.
Yeah, there's
It's
different
depend-
deductibles.
yeah,
There's
it's
zero,
dep-
there's
yeah.
250, there's 500, there's 1,000. These are for PIP only. This
So
is
what is
PIP.
better, Rob, to get the deductible or
Well, that's
without the deductible?
that's a personal situation based upon your your personal financial situation and whether you have health insurance, because health insurance would pay towards the first medical bills even if you have a deductible. So there's some issues there.
Yeah, that's
So it's a little bit complicated.
yeah. I cannot now. I understand why people don't get too much information about the coverages. It's very complicated. That's why the best way to go is find somebody have experience and
Exactly.
then sit down with them so they can explain you. Because especially it's for free. You're not gonna pay anything.
Exactly. If they have a question, give us a call at our office. 866 945 4768. I'm not here just to give advice, but yes,
Yeah,
that's what we do.
yeah,
But the
so-
other thing is, with regard to PIP, the other part of it is there's another part of coverage called medical payments or MedPay.
MedPay, yeah.
And what that does is it pays the portion of your medical bills in excess of the 80%. So it pays your out-of-pocket expenses up to the policy limit. So, for example, you can have a $10,000 PIP policy, which pays 80% of your medical bills, and you can have a $5,000 medical payments policy,
yeah.
which will pay the 20% that is not covered by PIP.
By PIP.
Plus, whenever that policy limit is reached, in other words, now you've got the PIP is exhausted. You've already paid the $2,000. The $2,000. In copay. Then you also have additional coverage up to the policy limit of the MedPay at 100% of your medical bills. So
Yeah.
MedPay changes it from 80% to 100% for up to the limit of the $15,000.
Basically, Rob, this kind of information you're giving right now, we should have a class for that because that's really, really good information. Most of the people they don't know about all those coverages.
It's important also if we could translate some of this to make sure that
Yeah,
people
yeah, ça
understand.
vraiment important
Yeah.
parce que ça son classe pour nous ta faire pour moun yo chita pour nous Rob ta venir pour chita l'expliquer moun yo parce que majorité là yo toujours dit moun yo gen full coverage but yo va expliquer moun yo qui coverage yo gen et des fois coverage qui vraiment important yo là yo dit moun yo gen full coverage c'est là on a accident c'est là ça moun n'entendait il pas de gen coverage ça il pas de gen coverage ça et pour moun nan lui même il pas de connaît ça fait n'a dit moun yo quelle que soit question nous gen les nan pral pour assurance relon moun qui gen expérience qui connaît ça la faire pour qui chita parler ensemble avec nous pour expliquer nous qui coverage pour nous.
Now, we've only talked about the minimum coverages that are required. There's additional coverages, obviously, that you can purchase and that are very important.
Yeah, gen minimum coverage, nous t'a parlé de minimum coverage que ou t'a supposé prendre en Florida, but gen lot coverage additionnel coverage qui vraiment important tout.
There's another coverage called bodily injury liability coverage.
Gen coverage le bodily injury liability coverage.
Exactly. And liability coverage means, again, they're protecting the other person in case you're involved in a collision and it's your fault.
Liability à protéger moun ou frapper à moun ou cause problème damage là pour li c'est l'il protéger.
And bodily injury liability coverage protects, it affords coverage for the person who is hurt because of your negligence.
Also, that coverage protéger moun ou frapper à cause de négligence. Okay.
It protects the other person. That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. But we've always talked about uninsured motorist coverage, and we're going to talk about that. But in order to buy uninsured motorist coverage, you first are required to have bodily injury liability coverage.
Yeah, pour acheter uninsured motorist, ça c'est un coverage qui est plus important. But pour acheter, faut acheter tout bodily
Injury liability.
Bodily injury liability.
And you've always heard me say uninsured motorist coverage is, in my opinion, the most important coverage that you can buy.
Uninsured motorist, an aptande moun yo, même les autant de moun yo do gen full coverage, yo pas mette uninsured motorist la dan.
And
So, c'est un coverage qui est important. Quel que soit le wal pour assurance, moun nan do gen full coverage, mandel est-ce qu'il gen UM la dan.
Now, if you understand bodily injury liability coverage, that means that it's the insurance that's in place to help the person who's hurt because of someone else's negligence.
Yeah. So, bodily injury, c'est un monde qui frappé à cause de négligence de l'autre monde.
And the problem with accidents and collisions in general is that you're relying so often on the insurance that the other person buys.
Yeah, c'est ça qui passe. Parce que des fois, on a un accident ou mise sur assurance l'autre monde là des fois.
And the way to avoid that is through uninsured motorist coverage.
Yeah, une seule façon pour éviter pas rete sou assurance l'autre monde nan se prend on bagay yo rele uninsured motorist, li rele UM, quel que soit loi prend assurance là. Mon nan mette dou gen full coverage, make sure mandel eske assurance lan gen UM la dan. S'il va gen UM, dil s'il vous plaît, tant pris mettez le vous.
And what UM coverage does, uninsured motorist coverage does, is it's a contract between you and your own insurance company, where your insurance company agrees to stand in the shoes of the at-fault driver if they don't have enough bodily injury liability coverage or any bodily injury liability coverage.
Sa UM nan fè kon ya li même li la pou protéger si moun ki frappe la, pa ta gen assurance, li pa ta gen rien même, kit li ta gen assurance, kit li pa gen assurance, UM nan la pou protéger ou même parce que pas oublier Florida non dans le monde k'ap conduit machine dans la rue sans assurance, des fois son PIP yo gen son machine, pas oublier PIP a pas payer tout bill médical yo pour so c'est 80% le payer dans bill médical yo. So c'est ça que fait ou même faut font gens pour protéger tête ou pour prendre UM qui pour protéger aussi on dans la rue pour les bagarres assurance.
You know, I always say you want to put your fate in your own hands, not in someone else's hands.
Yeah,
that's what I always say.
La force c'est nan mon pour la force, so pas quitter la force nan main l'autre monde.
And the way to do that is by carrying uninsured, among other things, is by carrying uninsured motorist coverage so that if you are involved in an accident and the other person doesn't have enough bodily injury or any bodily injury coverage and you're hurt, you're protected by your own insurance company.
Yeah, choix vraiment belle là, même les choix belle n'a ponti pose après ça n'a retourner avec même plus d'informations pour mon encore.
Zami, frère Sam, gardez, si vous faites accident, assurez-vous qu'on choisit un avocat qui a des années d'expérience. Un avocat qui a un bon résultat. Mais, pas comprendre que le résultat, l'autre monde joue, c'est le même résultat ou joue. Il pas comme ça. Eh bien, rele injury la groupe, dans 866 945 47 68. Équipe ça, belle équipe ça, équipe injury la groupe là, il y a des années, depuis la bête des gens qui ont injury. Moun qui fait accident, avec un pile cas assurance. Nous aidons les gens à faire des millions de dollars. Des millions de dollars, oui, clients nous fait. Nous avons plus que 35 ans d'expérience. Tendez ça, nous pas charger $1 si vous pas gagné caisse là. Relez nous aujourd'hui pour consultation gratis. Dans 866 945 47 68. Ou faire accident machine, ou frapper dans le travail, ou t'as le docteur ou bien l'hôpital, vous pas faire travail bien, vous te fait mauvais pratique, ou glisser, ou tomber, ou gros blessure, ou prendre une gros catastrophe, ou que famille, amis, le docteur est le mauvais remède, qui cause de mourir parce que vous avez le mauvais soin. Vous fait discrimination contre nous, nous aidons avec tout problème ça. C'est juste que nous dans 866 945 47 68. Bon, dis pas tracasser tête tout, puisque nous parlons plusieurs langues. Nous parlons espagnol, nous parlons créole. Un jour, le groupe, office principal, nous dans Boca Raton, dans Florida. Gardez, depuis après l'avocat, nous voulons laisser nous rele.
Bon, n'a retourné encore et parce que dans pile bonne information que t'as tombé là parce que nous pas qu'à quitter information là et nous pas partager ensemble avec mon yo parce que nous dans la communauté là c'est nous pour dire mon yo exactement qui ça pour faire les non problème comment yo ka premièrement y a des têtes yo y a des familles yo et y a des amis qui bon côté yo tout et si yo gagne assez coverage dans l'arrière y a protéger tête yo et protéger tout le monde qui dans zone bon côté yo.
You know, as we're talking about how to protect yourself, and you've heard me say it, I just said it a few minutes ago, how important uninsured motorist coverage is to protect yourself if you're injured in an accident.
Yeah, UM not vraiment important pour protéger tête ou si frapper.
And although it's not really part of insurance coverages, I feel it very important to also say that when you're dealing with insurance companies, in my judgment, it's always best to have an experienced attorney help you deal with the insurance companies rather than dealing with them yourself.
Yeah, l'on a dit avec assurance compagnie, c'est vraiment important pour un avocat qui a expérience beaucoup qui peut aider. But most of the time, the people they said when they ask for they don't want to give it to them, or they just tell them you have full coverage. You have to be an informed consumer. You have to take control of your own insurance coverages. And to do that, you're going to have to ask some tough questions sometimes. Some insurance companies would prefer not to sell uninsured motorist coverage because they understand what that means. Yeah.
That they're now going to be on the hook, regardless of who's at fault. If you're at fault, they're on the hook for your own liability coverage. If you're not at fault, they could be on the hook for the other person's liability if they don't have enough insurance or the right kind of insurance. So it's important for you to break through any barriers that the insurance companies might try to set up for you to buy that insurance. It's that important.
Yeah.
So I always say if the most important insurance coverages you can have are for your car, comprehensive and collision, and for your personal body, for your injuries, to protect you from injuries, is uninsured motorist coverage.
Okay. yo bien n'a prend ça non bon di moun yo ça. Puis bon coverage ou ka gen pour machine là, c'est compréhensive avec collision, ça c'est pour machine là. But pour même qui en dans machine là pour protéger tête tout, c'est UM là pour gen make sure des coverage ça ou gen dans machine. Compréhensive avec collision, UM là. Et uninsured motorist ça, des coverage ça make sure pas quitter mon abdou c'est full coverage ou gen des tout un monde ou gen full coverage ça va la donne. Pas occuper make sure li met coverage ça au bout. So what I have a couple questions. I don't know if you want to.
Sure, go ahead.
So basically, the flooding. There's a lot of cars that flood.
Yeah.
So how can we help somebody that his car or her car get flooded in the rain?
That's a great question. Flood is usually covered under something called comprehensive coverage. You know, we talk about very briefly. We just mentioned comprehensive and collision. So let me go through what that is.
Okay. Flood là li même li couvri dans comprehensive là.
Comprehensive coverage and collision coverage cover you the damages to your own car up to replacing your car from your own insurance company.
Yeah, ça li couvri si machine ou écrasé pour remplacer machine ou pour ça c'est assurance compagnie pour là.
Collision coverage obviously covers the damages caused from any collision, regardless of who's at fault.
Quel que soit mon qui a faute la collision a couvri mon machine qui frappe yo, quel que soit ou même ou bien l'autre monde.
Comprehensive coverage covers damages to your own vehicle, again, up to the value of the car, for anything other than a collision. From other words, for example, if a tree falls or if there is a flood or something like that, it can be covered. You have to look at the specific terms of your policy, but as a general rule, these are things that are covered, by, for example, by flood.
Okay, so comprehensive la li couvre si machine na fait accident ou collision, si gon pied bois tomber sous lit, ou bien si machine nan prend de l'eau, li te gon inondation, la fini machine nan prend de l'eau, li gâte el vin baka courir encore moteur écrasé.
Now the great news is, you know, a lot of people understand that the insurance companies send them a copy of their policy when they first first purchase the policy, but most people don't necessarily remember where they put it or whether they have it or not. Great news is we as attorneys, I as an attorney have tools that I can use to help get the copy of the policy of insurance very quickly.
Okay, avocat yo li même les assurances avant et coverage là, so des fois yo vont papier ba ou moun yo pa konn côté ou metel, but avocat gon moyen pour prendre papier rapidement mais assurance.
So these are just some things to understand that, you know, it's in, I've always said it before, I said it a few minutes ago, how important I believe it is to have an experienced attorney standing by your side, working through the insurance claims for you and with you, rather than you doing it yourself.
C'est ça que fait toujours dire mon yo. Cherchons un avocat qui a expérience qui pour qu'on camper ensemble avec nous au lieu de le faire pour compte nous parce que dossier ça est vraiment compliqué. Numéro de téléphone là encore c'est 866 945 47 68. Go ahead. What about
insurance claims are very complicated, and they're the insurance companies oftentimes, not all insurance companies, but a lot of insurance companies are in the business of trying to minimize the amount of money they have to pay for each claim, and they have ways of doing that that you're not necessarily aware of if you're not in this business with this kind of experience.
So basically, anybody got car that was flooded, so they can call us.
Absolutely.
If the house was flooded too, they can call us. Also.
Absolutely, and oftentimes, you know, particularly if it's against your own insurance companies, more often than not, we're able to help without any charge to the client.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Quel que soit mon machine ou ta prend de l'eau dans inondation que t'es passé avant hier, parce que t'es grand pile la pluie avant hier. Et nous carré ça dans bois haute cani dans dead cani tout grand pile machine qui prend de l'eau dans la rue. You know, toujours les nous dans 866 945 47 68 si kay nous ta prendre de l'eau tout. Ou carré les nous téléphone là nous n'a répondre appel là chaque jour et si gen monde qui peut parler créole ensemble avec nous, gen monde qui peut parler français, gen monde qui parle anglais, gen monde qui parle espagnol.
You know, we've helped a lot of people, particularly in the last 6 months or so. We've helped a lot of people with insurance claims against their own insurance company. When the insurance company denied the claim, we were successful in getting coverage at no expense to our client because the insurance companies ended up having to pay our attorney's fees.
Yeah, des fois les assurances yo deny claim moun yo et c'est avocat gen chance des fois li fait claim pour moun yo et moun yo joine cob et c'est pas moun yo paye le cob li cob parle là pas sorti dans cob et client c'est assurance là paye directement.
Now, I will say that what we can do for one client, we can't necessarily do for everybody. So every case is different. Your case may be unique and different. So the results don't necessarily are reflected for everybody, but that's just some of our experience.
Yeah, chaque question différent. Et résultat on l'autre joindre, j'en nous dit dans spot là c'est pas résultat ça ou même au cas joindre parce que chaque question différent mais ou cas toujours rele nous mais numéro téléphone dans la branche sur cas toujours rele nous pour expliquer cas pour là spécifiquement pour avocat comment les même les cas aider.
And I'd say of the cases that I'm thinking about, the ones that I think of the most, the ones that we've had the most of are collision coverage claims and comprehensive coverage claims.
Yeah, no gain, no jeune qui ça en pile comprehensive coverage claim avec claim collision, no jeune en pile dans cas ça.
Where the claims were denied by the insurance companies, and we've ended up getting them completely covered and paid in full without any expense to the clients.
Yeah, des fois, assurance compagnie a dit na claim et avocat font gens. So
while we're talking about insurance coverages, I glossed over briefly comprehensive and collision. We talked a little bit about what they are, and along with those coverages, those are the coverages that protect your vehicle from either a collision, regardless of who's at fault, or from other sources of damage, other causes of damage, like trees falling or flooding or things like that.
Yeah. Parce que non seulement nous parler des collisions, mais nous parler des cas aussi on pied bois tomber sur machine ou bien machine et l'eau entrer dans machine pendant que la pluie. C'est tout notre gros la pluie ça qui se passe l'eau entrer dans machine pas négliger les nous dans 866 945 47 68.
Along with comprehensive and collision, some of the other coverages that are real important are rental car coverage and towing expense coverage.
Yep. Ça vraiment important pour louer machine pour avec pour tour une machine pour ça vraiment important.
And I'm going to give people a caution about rental car insurance, something to really look at now before you have an accident.
Ça vraiment important parce que avocat bral ba nous on ti ba là pour faire nous connaître garder coverage rental coverage là avant nous ta involve no accident.
Lately, we've seen, the insurance coverages for rental cars, some of them have not gone up in recent years, and I've seen them as low as $15, $20, $25 a day.
Some people, most of them, got $15 a
very,
day.
very difficult, if not impossible today. The prices, the costs of rental cars has gone astronomically skyward compared to what the coverages are. So you have to check. I always recommend people to check what their rental car coverage is and compare it against what it costs. You can even ask the insurance agent. They'll tell you what it costs. They know.
Yeah.
For example, Enterprise oftentimes has a deal with many of the insurance companies. They charge a reduced rate to them for claims like comprehensive or collision or property damage claims. But you need to find out and make sure that your coverage is enough for even those reduced rates.
Yeah. Ça veut dire mon yo garder coverage nous ainsi tout pour louer machine nan. Majorité les machines yo c'est $15 yo et dans moment qu'on y a pas besoin de machine $15 par jour. Garder policy là pour qui combien coverage yo a parce que ça arrive souvent mon yo machine yo frappé les yo garder yo c'est $15 par jour et assurance la paye pour yo et des fois machine yo c'est $30 $35 yo et machine vraiment cher qu'on y a pour louer. So, garder policy pour nous voir combien rele assurance compagnie pour dire nous combien rental nous en est.
We've had a lot of clients who thought they had really good rental car coverage, and all they get is a check to cover part of the rental car coverage that they had to incur.
Yeah.
Not only are the prices gone up, but the delay times for parts have gone up. So if your car is not drivable and it's a 30-day policy, I've seen many cases where it takes much longer than 30 days to get a car fixed, and the person is responsible for the rental car all that time if they don't have, depending upon the insurance situation on the other party.
Yeah. Ça,
and the liability situation.
Ça arrive souvent, des fois c'est 30 jours, yo payé, et gardez les machines, yo kon fait plus que 30 jours pour yo ranger. So, ça, assurance fait juste volontiers chèque barou pour couvrir et jour palio ça pour le payer pour aller finir tout reste comme c'est pour payer. So, n'a prié mon yo en grâce, garder policy assurance ou gain pour ka ouais est-ce que tout bagay yo correct et sous ta une question rele mon koto te prend rele agent tout te prend assurance là men là pour qui edo final word
is there's a lot more to discuss,
yeah,
and I realize we're out of time.
Yeah.
But if the time to figure out whether you have the right kind of insurance is now, before you've been involved in an accident. If you've been in an accident, give us a call before, as quickly as you can. preferably before you speak to the insurance company if possible. That's my recommendation. Call us at 866 945 47 You can also reach us on the internet, www.yourinjurylawgroup.com or avocatpaula.com.
So, n'a dit tout le monde, bonsoir tout le monde.